Hi, everybody. Welcome to Crooked Con. My guest served in the Marine Corps, in the House of Representatives, and is now Senator.
Oh, just saying hi to friends.
Saying hi to friends. Senator from the great state of Arizona. Please welcome Senator Ruben Gallego.
Hi.
Man, I am so glad that we are doing this after a great election day, as opposed to, sometimes our job is to buck people up. Sometimes it's to temper their enthusiasm. And boy, it's more fun to be in that camp.
Winning is good.
Yeah.
Like, Democrats have forgotten that. Winning is a good thing. We should enjoy it, too, when it happens.
So what was your overall takeaway from what happened on Tuesday?
So my takeaway, like, to get all poli-sci wonky on y'all, is that what you saw, the winning coalition that we've had for years, came back together, right? And what does that mean? We had working class voters joined with Latinos, with African Americans, and swing suburban women and men. And they all came out and they said, we're pissed at this administration and the Republicans. And especially when it comes to Latinos, the two reasons I think you saw this big switchback was, number one, affordability had not changed. And it's actually gotten worse for these working class Latino families. And you got to remember the way Latinos, unfortunately in this country, they build their wealth by how many hours they put together. And they tend to have, kids. I have 3 kids. Groceries are really expensive. They're only getting worse. And so everything they heard that was going to happen if Trump won has not happened. And then now you're racially profiling and going after abuelitas. You're going after people in the community that are not criminals. So those two combinations got that community to move back. And you saw other stuff happen. You saw the Indo community swing heavily back towards Democrats. So I think the coalition came together, and it came together largely because of the total inaction from the Republican Congress and this president just being a total asshole.
So I'm glad you brought that up. I wanted to ask you about Latino voters, because you've talked about exactly what happened in 2024, and I'm curious how you update it for what we just watched, which is the erosion didn't happen early in the Biden administration. People gave him some space. But when the stimulus that had come through COVID had started to lapse, when prices didn't come down, that's when you started to see Latino voters shift toward Trump. Then you had a bunch of Republicans do a bunch of gerrymandering based on what happened in 2024. If you were a Republican House member in Texas who's just been drawn into a district based on certain expectations about the Latino vote, how nervous would you be?
So I would be very nervous. Now, when they draw these districts, I've been involved. I was the past chairman of Bold PAC, which is the Congressional Hispanic Caucus PAC, and we ran a lot of people and were successful in the past. The way that they do them in Texas, they actually draw these heavy Latino low turnout districts next to these really rural white Republican high turnout districts. So it looks like the district is Latino, but sometimes turnout is lower. So now what the danger that they have is that not only are Latinos going to come and vote Democratic, that there's going to be higher turnout. Because from my experience in Arizona, a lot of what I started around was fighting SB 1070, Church or Arpaio. When you start doing these types of things, you start doing roundups, you start doing racial profiling, you start doing, dragging people out of their cars. The people that actually respond first are younger voters. And they're going to come out and vote fairly heavily, I think, in an off-year election, and they're going to vote Democratic. And that's going to end up, I think, fucking these guys that are expecting a very sleepy and right-leaning Latino voter, and I just don't think that's going to happen.
You're somebody who also, I think, has been grappling with what Democrats are getting wrong in trying to reach a diverse coalition of working people. And part of that is Democrats rightly, right now we're in a fight about healthcare. We've been trying to stop Republicans from eviscerating the safety net. But on the other hand, we don't talk enough about the good life, not just making sure people can survive, but actually have a fun, great time in America, building wealth and going on vacations and stuff.
Yes, I mean, if you think about it, the original labor movement, right? like when our labor movement started, and what they wanted was not just for the, that man or woman to just get enough money to get by. They literally talked about the freedom and the power to have time to raise your children, to go on vacation, to live and be involved in your community. If you look at like what they were talking about, that is literally part and parcel of what we're missing now as Democrats. Because we talk about, for example, let's raise the minimum wage. You're like, well, like why are we thinking about the minimum? What concept can we bring as Democrats to talk to that middle of the road worker who maybe they are making enough money, but they don't feel comfortable, right? And the other thing is that a lot of these voters had parents that did get to live that life, right? So, if you're like a 45-ish-year-old person like me, you remember your parents being able to buy a home. You remember your parents having a car. You remember your parents taking you on vacation. And now you're looking at yourself and you're like, I have no car. I'm still living with my parents. I have no home. And the job I get doesn't even give me any type of really fun relaxation or assurances of a better life. And so when Democrats are talking about, to voters, and this is the thing that I did a little different from other people last cycles, I talked to them about really living a good, fulfilling life, and that the Democrats are going to fight for you to have the good, fulfilling life, so that way you can spend time with your kids, you can take a vacation, you can relax, you can breathe a little easier. I had a whole campaign commercial about doing things to make you just breathe a little easier. I had people coming up to me like, thank God you finally, someone's talking to me about that. And we got a little too, we became too economically wonkish versus actually talking to people about what the real needs they want, which is stability, a future, an idea that things are going to get better. And I think when we think about things that way, and actually when we design policies that way, that's when we start getting those voters to come back to us.
What are some policy areas that you think would help us tell a story that, yes, we are about making sure that everybody can get by, people can get enough food to eat, that we're going to fight for SNAP benefits, we're going to fight for Medicare, but we're also going to fight for an economy where people can like really be prosperous?
Well, I think first of all, fighting is, don't detract the idea of fighting, because one of the problems that I think Democrats have had is that a lot of people don't think we're willing to fight. And a lot of think that we're basically these passionless ghouls that just aren't willing to go to the mat. And there is a voter out there that will decide between a Democrat and Republican based on who they think is quote unquote willing to fight for me and or tougher. And a lot of times we find ourselves, when voters look at us, they don't think that we're this person's willing to go to the mat for me, right? So fighting, number one, matters. Number two, picking the right opposition and not being afraid of doing that, right? Whether it is the big corporations, like for example, on my campaign, there's 2 grocery stores that we're trying to merge, and from day one, I went right to town on it. Every day I could, I talked about stopping this merger because it was going to, increase grocery prices, and these are very big employers in Arizona, and so people were telling me like, you're going to tick off a lot of people because you're going after these 2 groceries. I'm like, yeah, but the person that's going to end up getting hurt is a person that can't afford the groceries because it's only 1 grocery store in all of Arizona, and so picking that fight matters. And then lastly, I do think that when we do anything, any type of policy, the concrete is always going to be more important than the atmosphere that it creates. What does that mean? Like I've been like toying around with, what should we do about the minimum wage, right? First of all, we should stop calling it the minimum wage. I think that's, nobody wants to ever have a minimum, right? You never want to work for anything minimum. But number two, like even when you're talking to a worker, I think it's easier for us to say, hey, we want to pay you not 16 cents, let's pay you the amount of money you need to survive, right? Is that $20 an hour? Then fine, $20 an hour. But let's be like proud of the fact that I'm going to give you a wage that you're going to be able to actually live and thrive under. Live and thrive. And don't be afraid to say it like, you know what, you're going to get $20 an hour, and that's going to make sure that gives you $800 a week. That's $3,200 a month. That's almost $40,000 a year. Family of 2, that's almost $100,000. All these things that we just kind of miss, because I think a lot of us nerds don't understand that these working people are really effing busy. So we need to make sure that we can get our message to them concretely, quickly, and not having to actually go into a real deep policy, statement about how we're going to make their life better.
So, in a recent interview with the Times, you said, "We can't be afraid of failing. I think the biggest mistake I've seen Democrats make, we're always afraid of failing, so we don't take risks." We just went through this election. The government is still shut down. That is going to be hurting more and more people. Are Democrats going to hang together? And what is the kind of daring and risk-taking you want to see that we don't have right now?
Well, so the statement is both on a political side as well as a policy side. So, during the campaign, you say Chuck Roach over there was one of my consultants. We tested a lot of things. And I don't know if you guys followed the race, but for almost 18 months, I actually did not have the support of the Democratic establishment because I was running against a supposed Democrat, Kirsten Sinema. And but one of the benefits of that is that we didn't have a lot of DC consultants trying to constrain us. And so me and Chuck and a couple of us, Rebecca, I don't know if Rebecca Katz is here today, but we just ran wild. We're like, let's just try anything, right? So I did these boxing matches. We put rodeos together. I went to lowrider shows. Did we put a lowrider show together? We put a lowrider show together for, you guys a lot of white people here. Lowriders. Lowriders are like these artisan cars that are really valued in our Latino communities and largely by working class Latino men.
Can I tell you something as someone who's not part of that community? But
no, I cannot tell.
But sees lowriders around LA.
Yeah.
I come from a community of anxious Jewish people, and whenever I see these cars, I'm like, these streets cannot handle these lowriders. They're going to be. You're gonna turn into a fucking parking lot, and we're gonna scrape the whole bottom of the car.
No, those cars are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. They know exactly what they're doing. But this is where it's important, though. Here's where it's important. You, as a very nervous Jewish person, should not be afraid to go to a lowrider show and shake hands, right? And I did. I mean, I went to every effing festival I could find. The Asian community is a growing community in Arizona, and there are, through my education now, there are multiple Asian New Year. So the Laotian New Year is different from I think the Cambodian New Year. They have different. So I would go to different New Year celebrations and try all their food, right? And then suburban people, suburban swing voters, largely white voters, I'm like, okay, we need to get out there. How do we get out there? I'm like, you know what? We're going to do pickleball. I don't even play pickleball. I don't play pickleball at all. But I know my mother-in-law always talked about pickleball. I'm like, you know what? Let's do pickleball. So we did a pickleball tournament. I went out there. I put my headband on, and I had a Gallego branded pickleball, and we did pickleball, right? But I needed to get out there. And guess what? I don't know if it was going to be successful or not. So you can't be afraid. We are not the popular party anymore. We actually need to understand that. We need to work to get votes. We can't just expect the votes to come to us. Same with policy. Don't boo me. Give credit to Donald Trump. Before you go. Do you think they actually sat down and said, you know what, let's figure out the economic implications of no tax on tips and no tax on overtime? Do you think they actually sat down with the economists and said, let's figure out how this is going to work. Let's talk to the Department of Labor. No, you know what they did? They said, man, we really need to win Nevada. How can we win Nevada right now in a world where the economy is not doing great? And I need to be identified as someone who's pro-working class. I'm going to take this position on no tax on tips. And they did it. And they figured out how to get it done later. And they won, right? So we need to kind of be thinking about that big picture and not necessarily get down into the weeds on something. And I will give you actually a really good example that happened last cycle with this last administration. And look, I don't want to go back and blame everything on that, but this is a good example of what things happened. So almost seems like a zillion years ago, I'm in an Uber and I'm driving, not driving the Uber, but Not that there's anything wrong with that. Talking to the Uber driver in Spanish, he doesn't know I'm a member of Congress at this point, but gas is through the roof. And I ask him, like, well, you should be fine because the reimbursement catches up. And he tells me in Spanish, absolutely not. The gas is so expensive, it's now blown any kind of savings I get. So I get back to here, Washington, D.C., talk to my staff, like, hey, I have a really good idea. Right now, the prices are so effing expensive. Why don't we just raise the mileage reimbursement for drivers, right? And that's a lot of people, small business owners everywhere. My staff comes back to me a couple days later, like, guess what? You don't have to do that. The IRS can just do it on their own. And I swear to God, I thought I just saved the Biden campaign because I call up, I'm like, man, I got a great idea for you guys. You guys could just do this overnight. I'm not going to tell you who I talked to over there, but someone very high up. They're like, oh, wow. Oh, wait, no, that's the IRS. I'm like, yeah, like, well, I'm like, the IRS is under the executive. You guys are the executive. You literally can change this. And I said, like, look, just add 25 cents. Like 25 cents right now, you will literally get, hundreds of thousands, millions of workers are going to be so happy, and now they will know Biden raised my mileage reimbursement. That's like people's money. I heard nothing for months.
I'm so mad.
For months.
I'm mad now.
When I finally heard back, it did move, and I can't remember how much, but it wasn't that much. And I asked, why did you guys choose that amount? And they said, well, we talked to some economists, and they said that it likely wouldn't actually bring down the price of gas, and it would actually create a bigger deficit. Like, but you're going to lose the election. Why do you care what that's going to do? And that's it. And like, now think about what Trump would have done in that scenario. He would have done $1, probably. Increase it $1. It would have been bigly. And then he would have gone to every swing state in front of every gas station and said, like, I did this, right? Instead, we ended up putting it through like a Six Sigma process to figure out whether we should do it or not. And then we still lose elections. That is what I'm talking about. Like, don't be afraid to make a mistake. Be bold.
So I want to come back to what's happening in D.C. right now. I was, I knew we were going to be talking, and I was reading some of your past comments, and I happened to see it when I saw that the Senate Democratic leader was asked who he was voting for in New York, and he said, I'm voting. Boy, am I voting. Adios. And it was very revealing to me because here is somebody that is supposed to be the leader of the Democratic Party. He is afraid to tell the left he voted for Cuomo, if that's what he did. He's afraid to give Republicans an issue if he says he voted for Mamdani. And then where do we end up with? A person who literally is saying, I don't stand for anything in this moment. And you were asked about Mamdani, and you said what I think is not that hard to string together. We don't agree on everything, but he's part of our coalition, something to that effect. Why can't Chuck Schumer say that?
I don't know, and I'll be honest, I don't. So when we say we're part of a big tent, we have to mean we're part of a big tent. And that big tent goes everywhere. And I say this to people on the far left. They're like, you know what? That means we have to accept people that are, for example, Jared Golden, who just decided not to run, right? I don't know how we're going to win that seat, right? But that also means that we have to accept people on the left, like the new mayor, right? And again, we don't have to agree on everything. We are a big tent, big policy party, and that's how we win. You don't see the Republicans doing this type of internal, like, pearl clutching, right? When they have some crazy wacko that wins whatever portion of the country, it's not weaponized for a couple reasons. Number one, the press just has a double standard about it. But number two, even if you did go to a Republican leader and be like, oh boy, that person that just won in red part of the country and said crazy things is a Republican, do you support them? They're going to say yeah, and then the story's done. And so I can't tell you what Chuck and a lot of these other New York Democrats were thinking, but I would have said one way or the other from day one where I was, and then after that, move on. You made it a story by trying to avoid the story. And I think it's just, you just ended up hurting yourself more.
And I think it speaks to something like a deeper problem that I think you are trying to figure out, which is it is easier to be buffeted by events when people don't know what you stand for. Now, you are from one of the redder states of, at this point, any Democrat in the Senate, but you are still believing very strongly in the need to fight this shutdown to the end and make sure we get health insurance for people and extend Obamacare. And yet some people inside of the caucus seem to be wavering a bit. What is your message to your fellow Democratic senators who are worried or wavering about why it is so important that we not give in?
And so, you know, and I have actually, what I've said is what I'm telling you guys is what I've said in caucus. There's nothing like, you know, the one thing I told him is that a shutdown hurts, but it does eventually end. And federal workers get reimbursed, you know, SNAP benefits will go back out. What doesn't get reimbursed is people losing health insurance. What people are going to really feel pain is their health insurance premiums doubling. So for some people, thousands of dollars. And things are so hard right now out there. Like, you know, I'm very lucky. I don't know if there's any Phoenicians here. I live in South Phoenix. It's a really working class Latino and African-American area. If you go to the grocery store, I am still seeing people take stuff out of their cart, right? I'm still seeing people not fully filling up their tank. If the Democrats are known as the people that allowed health insurance rate premiums to double without a serious fight, you're going to have those people that really want us to be in that fight not believe in us. And I do have a big take on what happened last year. Like, why did Latino men and Latinos in general swing so far against Democrats? Because they always knew and thought of Democrats as the people that fight for me and fight for working class people. And they were going through the hardest situation ever. You know, for the mentality of a Latino man is that they could always work hard to get themselves out of any problem. Like, they'll take on an extra job, they'll cut here, they'll do whatever it takes. For the first time ever, while I was, you know, out there, these men were telling me like they felt that they weren't going to make it, and I knew something was really bad. And what they felt was betrayal from the Democrats, because we were supposed to be the ones that are looking out for them. They didn't expect anything from the Republicans, because the Republicans have always been assholes to them. But they did expect us to take care of them at the biggest point of need, which is this sense of failure that they weren't able to provide for their family. And our response wasn't even like, oh, no, like, oh man, I'm so sorry, I'm an emotional response, things are bad. It was kind of like denial, like there was even a problem. And when that happened, these guys just either didn't vote or just went out on a revenge vote. And I bring this up because I think the same thing is going to happen with if we don't land this plane on health insurance. This is what we're known for. Like, you know, in 2006, there's a guy named Harry Mitchell, member of Congress from Arizona. He represented one of the most Republican districts in the state. I think it was like an country, but like, it was like R+20. He won in a wave year in 2006. 2010 rolls around, and it's the Affordable Health Care Act. It's down to 1 or 2 votes. And I was on his veteran advisory committee, and we're talking about it. And I'm like, what are you going to do, Harry? He's like, this is what I'm supposed to do. Like, I'm a Democrat. Like, if I'm not here for this, if I'm not here to make sure people get health insurance, then what else am I doing here? And he knew what he was doing. He voted for the Affordable Health Care Act, and he lost the next election, right? If we aren't here to give, provide, and protect affordable health insurance, what is our cause? What are we going to say to the voter about why you should elect us? Because they don't understand CRs. They don't understand open government. They don't understand appropriations. They understand Democrats help me have affordable health insurance. What is our cause if we don't have that at that point? That's what I'm saying.
You brought up that tough House vote. I was working for President Obama at that time, and I remember really just the incredible work and strategy and legislating that went into getting Obamacare through, because I will say this very briefly, it had passed the House, it had been on the cusp of coming out of the Senate. Senator Ted Kennedy passes away. Nancy Pelosi manages to get the House to vote for the Senate bill, even though it was meant to be revised. It had all kinds of like typos and stuff to get that done. What lessons do you think Democrats need to take right now from the way Nancy Pelosi got not just the healthcare bill through. She got a climate bill through. She got a bunch of hard stuff through that caucus at a time when vulnerable Democrats were worried. I'm curious, just because this is the week she announced she's stepping down.
Well, I mean, there'll never be another leader like Pelosi, and I hope all leadership can move to be as strong as she is, and I definitely wish that for us Democrats. So from my experience, like working with her, or I should say she had a very grounded understanding of success, and she guided us to it. She said, "This is the bill, this is the policy. We're going to move in this direction. What are your issues? Let's work out those issues, but we're going to keep moving, right?" What I've seen happen a lot of times with Democrats is we lose momentum all the time. And we lose momentum, and when we lose momentum, we lose the will to fight. We start second-guessing ourselves. We start getting into internal fights. And what we need to be learning from the successes that she had is always keep momentum. And my much younger days, I was a Marine. The one thing they teach you in war is keep your momentum, right? Momentum wins the day. Indecisive kills, or gets you killed. The same thing I've seen in politics. It's like the party, the politician, the group that has momentum and is moving is always going to be more successful than the person that's standing still, trying to figure out everything, making sure everything's exactly perfect before they move. Because usually what I've seen so far, when we do that as Democrats, we almost never even get moving. And so Pelosi's approach of leadership in motion is extremely important and something that we need to remember. And I think hopefully leaders going forward are going to have the same opportunity.
So you talked about your service in the Marines. We've seen Trump deploy National Guard to cities. We've seen him threaten to invoke the Insurrection Act. We've also seen an abuse of military power in these sort of lawless killings. What is your response to that as somebody who was in the Marines? And it's got to be tough for somebody who's currently serving, who joined for patriotic reasons or for personal reasons to get an education and to gain skills and build a different kind of life, to feel as though they're being used in this way while at the same time wanting to do their duty and fulfill their service.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know the exactly feeling because I was in the Iraq War, and I joined out of sense of duty to my country, even before 9/11. I'm the son of immigrants. Like, my dad's a convicted drug dealer. Like, there's no way I should have been able to go to college, or I just wanted to repay my country. So I joined the Marine Corps Reserves. So I wasn't trying to be, G.I. Joe, Rambo, or anything like that. I literally, and this is prior to 9/11, I thought I was just going to serve my time. Maybe I'll get activated or anything. It ended up, unfortunately, being one of the hardest combat tours ever for the Marines. And number two, I got called up not for Afghanistan, which I think I would have been fine with, especially at that point, but for the Iraq War, which I was entirely against. I knew it was a legal war, but I could not go for two reasons. Number one, I was infantry. I was trained infantry. I was getting sent with some guys that were not infantry. And I felt a certain responsibility that if I don't go, these guys are going to potentially die. And this is during the height of the insurgency. Number two, I thought it would be weird if I didn't go, that someone's going to have to take my spot. And what happens if something happens to that person? I'd have to live with that for the rest of my life. But even during the war, the whole time, I hated it there. I hated everything that was happening there. But I had to do my job, my duty, keep my men alive, keep my honor, and keep myself alive. But I was mad. I was really, really mad. I can't imagine what these young men and women are going to feel. But I tell you what's going to happen. If they politicize the military, if you turn the military against U.S. citizens, number one, first of all, the U.S. military is going to lose. But number two, the U.S. military is going to lose its stature within this country of being an apolitical force for good. You're going to have less and less people joining, and you're going to have a less amount of people that will ever really think about the military in a positive light, and will think about it more as an as an enemy versus people that are here to protect us. And the other thing is, this is the problem with Donald Trump. He's never served. And he doesn't understand that whatever he thinks he's going to be able to do with the military, it's not going to happen. It's just not. It's, leading, and being in war with like 18, 19-year-old boys, when people are actually trying to kill you, is hard, right? I remember grabbing a guy after they tried to hit us with an IED and pushing him out of a track and into a house. I literally had to grab this young man by the collar to get him moving. So if they think that these young 18, 19-year-old boys are going to be able to do that against their fellow Americans, it's just not going to happen. And also because he's so dumb when it comes to the military. He thinks sending 1,000 military personnel to a city of like 2.7 million is going to do anything, right? Or like the amount of people that he sends to like, Los Angeles. It just doesn't work that way. But what he will end up doing is making us weaker because it's just going to internally divide us as a country. It's going to divide and create more hatred. This is why he's trying to send National Guardsmen from Texas into Illinois, because he wants that division. He gets more power the more angry we are at each other and not able to train our actual anger on him and trying to stop him.
One last question. It's been great to talk to you. We have the momentum behind us coming out of Tuesday. What do you think is the most important thing for us to keep in mind as we try to win this fight over the shutdown and then head into these consequential midterm campaigns?
We just won. How did we win? Right? Look at that victory and figure out how do we keep doing it. It's not that hard, right? Like, this is not rocket science. We put a coalition together of people that were mad about the overreach of this president when it comes to their raids or racial profiling, and they're pissed about things being more expensive. That is not going to go away going into 2026. So just keep the focus, right? That is what you should be focused on. That is the coalition you need. Let's put it together and keep going. Keep it simple. Like, we get way too complicated sometimes, right? The way we win is that we have to be liked more than the other people. Let's try that. I don't know. Take some popular positions and hold those popular positions and talk about those popular positions. It's worked in the past, just throwing that out there. If we're more liked than the other side, we're going to win. If we're more trusted than the other side, we're going to win. So what should we do? We should do things that make people like us and do things that make people trust us. That's all you got. Like simplest thing in the world. I should be a political consultant. I can make millions of dollars doing this. Oh, if you're a candidate, if you do that, and as long as you're on the really red district, you're gonna win. Do things that are popular and that people support. Be likable. I can't have to say this. Be likable. And
there's a politician taking it. Okay, be likable. How do I do that? I have a terrible personality. I've been running for office since I was 13 years old. Fuck. Right.
But it'd be even if you are that person that has been running since you're 13 years old, at least be honest and earnest about it, right? It's like the worst thing is whenever you meet a politician who's a nerd but is trying not to be a nerd. Just be the nerd, dude. It's okay. Nerds win all the time. Actually, nerds win most of the time. Right? If you're like a little, weirdo like me, then go that route. It's just authentic, but be likable. And the way you most likely are more likely to be likable is if you are who your authentic self is.
Senator Ruben Gallego. That was great. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody.